Welcome to the second part of this lesson, and in this second part we're going to be doing two things. The first thing we're going to do is you're going to watch this video. So the video you're watching now, you're going to watch it. You don't need to write anything down as you watch it. I just need your full attention as I go through these ideas. And then the second thing you're going to do is an Education Perfect task, and I'll provide the link to that on the Teams post. So just to repeat that, you're going to watch this video, you don't need to take notes, and then you're going to do an Education Perfect task, which will be found on the Teams. The link will be there. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to go through rounding decimals. So what is rounding? Rounding involves approximating a decimal number to fewer decimal places. So if I have this question before me, it says round 15.6327 to 2 decimal places. Well, at the moment, this number has 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places. What I want to do is round it down to just have 2 decimal places. So to do that, I follow the following steps. I first put in a cut. I cut the decimal here. And now, as you can see, I just have 2 decimal places. But then I have to consider whether or not I have to round this up or round it down. And to consider whether I round up or round down, I need to look at my critical number. And the critical number is this one right here, the one before the cut. Now, in this example, my critical number is 2. Now, the critical number is going to tell us whether we round up or down. If the critical number is less than 5, then you round down. Now, numbers less than 5 are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if the critical number was 5 or more than 5, then you round up. So think 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you round up. So we'll go through what this rounding means. Let's just jump into some questions here. It's the only way to learn, to jump into some questions. So what we're going to do for this column here is round to 1 decimal place. We're going to round to 1 decimal place. So at the moment, this has 2 decimal places. We just want it to have 1. So what we do is we put in a cut, then we look at our critical number. Our critical number is 5. Now, we know that if it's 5, we round up. And what that means is I'm going to plus 1 to this number right here. So I'm going to get 7.5 because I'm going to plus a 1 onto this 4. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm rounding up because my critical number is 5. Let's go through another example. I have 89.37. I'm going to put a cut here because I only want 1 decimal place. I then look at my critical number. My critical number is greater than 5. It's 7 is greater than 5, so that means I round up. So again, I'm going to plus a 1 onto this 3. So that means I'm going to get 89.4 because 3 plus 1 is 4. So as you can see, what I've created here is a decimal with just 1 decimal place. So I just have a number with 1 decimal place. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to round to 1 decimal, and now I just have numbers with 1 decimal place. And it's all about looking at that critical number and determining whether you round up or down. All right, let's look at another example here. Let's see how we go with it. It says, I have 89.128. Now I want to round to 1 decimal place, so I cut it here. I look at my critical number. Now my critical number this time is 2. Well, 2 is less than 5. So that means I round down. And now to round down, I just do nothing. I just leave the number as it is. So because it's 1, it just stays as 1. I don't change anything. And that's rounding down. Let's go on to our next one. Here, I'm going to cut here. I'm going to look at my critical digit. My critical digit is more than 5, so I round up. I'm going to plus a 1 onto this, so it's going to be 0.1 because 0 plus 1 is 1. Let's go on to our next one. I'm going to put a cut here because I'm rounding to 1 decimal place. I look at my critical digit. My critical digit is 8. That's greater than 5, so I'm going to round up. Now, this is where it becomes a little tricky because if you look here, I have 49. I have a 9 here, right? 4.9, a 9. How do I round a 9 up? Well, it would become a 10. How could I squeeze a 10 in here? So this is actually a unique example. And what ends up happening is my 10 actually kind of spreads out. The 1 goes over here and the 0 comes here. So that means I plus a 1 to the 4 to become a 5, and then I get a 0 there. Now this is a unique example, and we'll go through more of these examples, so don't freak out if you're thinking, how on earth did that happen? All right, let's go through some more examples over here. This time we're going to round to 2 decimal places, so 2 decimal places this time. So that means I'm going to put my cut over here this time. So I have 2 decimal places. I then look at my critical number. My critical number is less than 5, so I round down. So I'm going to get 16.25. And again, that's because my critical number is less than 5. Let's come over here. I'm rounding to 2 decimals, right? So my end result has to only have 2 decimals. I put my cut here. I look at my critical number. It's greater than 5. So that means I'm going to round up. So I'm going to get 9.24. So I plus a 1 onto that 3 to make it a 4. I come to my next example. I cut it here because I only want 2 decimal places. I look at my critical number. My critical number is 2. That means I round down. I'm going to end up with 35.68. So the 8 just stays as it is because I'm rounding down. Let's go into my next one. I only want 2 decimal places, so I cut here. I look at this critical number here. It's greater than 5. That means it's going to push this 9 up to become 10. And remember, what happens here is that I end up pushing it across like this. So I'm going to end up with 112.10. And then this one right here. Now this one's really above and beyond. I only want 2 decimal places, so I cut it here. This 8 tells me I'm rounding up, which means this looks like that. So that pushes over. But then guess what? 1 plus 9 is 10 again. So it actually pushes over again. This 1 goes over here, and this becomes 0. So I'm actually going to end up with 46.00. Now, I still need to put the 0 zeros because I'm rounding to 2 decimal places, and so I need to have 2 digits to the right of the decimal place. So you can't just leave them off or anything like that. You still got to put them in. So that's rounding. Let's go through a few more examples, and then I'll set you that education perfect task. All right, more examples. It says round to 2 decimal places. How do we do this? Well, I only want 2 decimal places, so I'm going to put my cut here. I then look at my critical digit. It's less than 5, so I round down 25.68. Do you see how I wanted to round to 2 decimal places, and now my answer has 2 decimals? That's what it's all about. And I rounded down, so my 8 just stayed as an 8. Next, round to 3 decimal places. Well, that means I would put a cut here. So that means I have 1, 2, 3 here. This 8 tells me to round up. So I'm going to get 13.546 because I'm going to plus a 1 to that one. I come here, 3 decimals. I'm going to cut it there. This 5 tells me to round up. So I'm going to get 18.348. The last thing that we'll go through here before your education perfect task is rounding to the nearest whole. Now this is exactly the same, but this time our critical number is just going to be the number right before the decimal. So this one, this one, this one, and this one. We're looking at that number right there. Because it's greater than 5, we round up. So 1.729 becomes just 2, because I just want to round it to the nearest whole. So I just want to get rid of all the decimals altogether. So this is almost like saying round to 0 decimal places. I come over here. This one is less than 5, so I round down to 23. This one is 5 itself, and when it's 5, you round up. So it means it's going to push this 7 to an 8. And then this one, this is less than 5, so I round down. So 18 just stays as 18. And that's rounding, everyone. That is rounding. So we have done a whole bunch of rounding here. Hopefully it all makes sense. I'll now assign you an education perfect task. So if you go to Teams right now, so right now head off to Teams and you'll see a link to that education perfect task. And that's what you're going to do for the remaining time of this lesson. You're going to complete that education perfect task, and it will walk you through this process again. And hopefully you can finish it off and you feel comfortable with it. All right, with that, I'll say goodbye. Make sure you do your education perfect task now. Bye-bye.